Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Living and Loving with Monique McCall, yours truly. I'm country music singer, songwriter, and I am here to share my message and the message of others of living and loving. So today we do have a special guest who's going to take us somewhere we've never been before. Expert, corporate, and personal coach, former actor, fantastic father of a beautiful 11-year-old boy. He's going to share his stories, a 6'5" mountain of a man with the heart of Texas who boldly empowers others, Mr. Joe Masi. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Monique. Very happy and excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. This is fantastic. I mean, you have such a brilliant story and there's so much you can share. So I'd love to ask you a quick question. You know, I know that you've done a lot of things along the way in your life and you've been out and living and loving for a long time. But I'd like to hear a bit about and start with, you know, your acting career. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, great. We'll start there. You know, I think as a kid, I always wanted, I think underneath it, I wanted to be an actor. I was the class clown. I don't know if I really thought of it as a way of life or a career. And I found myself going down the athletic route. So I became a pretty competitive athlete. And so acting never really seemed like a thing that I could do. I just didn't have the time. And then I was playing ball in college. And I was in my English class, and
what ball were you playing?
Basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah.
I should have known that being 6'5".
Yeah. And then I actually ended up walking on the baseball team as well. But I got, you know, I was called to the school to play basketball, and I was in my English class, and my teacher asked me if I could sing. And I said, well, I could carry a tune. Why? He said, well, there's a role that the drama club is, they're putting on a show that you would be perfect for. And I said, you know what, why not? Let's give it a shot. So I went out for the play. I got it. I fell in love with it. It was Miles Gloriosos from A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. Huge farcical comedy, and I had such a great time.
So how'd that go over with the guys on the team?
Yeah, I don't know if any of them came to see it, but it's okay. It's okay. I found a new calling. I really did. And then coincidentally, the athletic department had some challenges, so it shut down for my senior year. And
see how that happens. Everything happens for a reason, right?
Oh, totally. And so I was all in. I from that moment on, I was in every play that was produced, and I really found a new home, and it was really exciting for me. And that was.
What did you do professionally? I know this is in high school. What did you do after high school? I know you were acting professionally as well.
Yeah. So this was college, and then once I graduated, I went to California, and I was
nice
to become a big movie star, and then quickly realized you need some more training. But I did end up getting my first role in The Young and the Restless out there. What
was that?
Oh, I think it was just like doorman #1. You know? I had it was an under 5, but to go out there and get my first speaking role was really exciting. And then I realized, you know what, I got to take this more seriously. So I went back to New York, and I started studying with Bill Esper. He had a two-year program, and then I was kind of off to the races. And then from there, I was in a fair amount of daytime TV. All My Children, One Life to Live.
Wow.
What was the other? Guiding Light. So I got recurring roles on those. And it kept me busy enough.
Still looking as you are, right? That was easy.
I guess it doesn't hurt for daytime TV. But I was keeping busy enough to feel like, okay, you know, I'm doing this. And then it became very challenging, you know, those dry spells. And I was like, I love this. I want to keep doing it. And I also feel like I need to fill something else in, you know, during the downtimes. And
what is that? Does that lead us to collective?
Yeah, you know what? I was living the life of I guess a struggling actor in New York City. I had an opportunity to cat sit for a guy who lived on the Upper West Side.
Mm-hmm.
He was going sailing around the world. So I had like 6 months of basically all I had to do was watch his cats in a studio apartment. And coincidentally, it was above an all boys school. And I would hear these kids playing around every day. And I was like, you know what? I'd love to just coach. And so I called up the athletic director, left a message saying, I'm a former baseball player. I would love to coach if there's any opportunities. Didn't hear back for like 2 weeks. He calls up, hey, Joe, I was just emptying out my voicemails, and just so happens today we found out we need a middle school baseball coach. Are you interested? I'm like, absolutely. So we met, got it, coached these kids, fell in love. It was just, it was like I had a bunch of little brothers running around, and because I come from a family of all girls. So we just had such a great time. And it went so well, they hired me as a full-time phys ed and strength coach. I was also a personal trainer as part of my day job as an actor. Mm-hmm. So I helped build their strength training program.
Well, you just ended up somewhere that you probably never imagined. When you were growing up, what did you imagine your life looking like?
Honestly, when I was a kid, I didn't want to be a fireman. I didn't want to be a policeman. I want to be a cowboy.
I like that. Where have all the cowboys gone? That's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah.
We need more cowboys in this
I am 1000% a cowboy at heart, and I know I'm going to end up on a ranch somewhere with farms, with horses and animals.
You and me both.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big part of who I am.
So you wanted to be a cowboy, and then all of a sudden, you're on the basketball team. You end up, in a play, and then that launches you into this wonderful acting career. And now here we are, all just by what? Accident, right?
Totally.
You were out living, loving, doing your thing, and just letting the world lead the way.
Yeah, and to take it one step further, it's all God for me. I'm always listening for what's next. I'm certain I have an agenda that I want things to go exactly the way I want them to.
I think we all do, right?
Yeah, rarely has that happened. And so I do try to keep an ear out for, that internal ear out for God of what do you want me to do? Where do I need to go? And for me, it's like, I get this image of a big green light, this is it. It makes no sense, but you're called to work with kids, go do that. And then what happened was
the beauty in it is that it doesn't need to make sense, right?
Totally. Absolutely. I've learned that. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. God's plan rarely is a logical, earthly, sensical plan. And, sometimes we have a clear idea of what that is in retrospect. But I just continue to follow what feels right. And for me, that's the call.
So would you say that, the magic happens when you're not making any plans?
Oh, no question. No question. And I have an amazing story that I don't know if we have enough time for about.
We got plenty of time. I'm here as long as you want me. So thank you for being here.
Okay. All right. Well, we can either wrap up where the school thing took me, or I can share a phenomenal story about magic and no plans. You tell me.
I love the magic and no plans, and then I'd like to hear. I can only imagine that it's from coaching these young boys that you ended up becoming the brilliant expert coach you are. So I do want to hear more about that. But yes, please tell me your story of magic. And
this is borderline, right? Unbelievable. That's crazy, but it's so true. So I was dating a woman who I was in love with, and having challenges at the time, and we had broken up. And I was like, I just got to get out of here. I got to do something different. I got to mix this up. So you know, you have those the airline points on your credit card. So I called up Delta and I said, I have all these points. I haven't traveled for years. What would it cost me to take a trip to Paris and then Rome? And they said, well, it just so happens you're covered. Your flights are covered. That's
wow.
I was like, okay, green light, I'm doing this. So I booked the trip to Paris and Rome. I made absolutely no hotel accommodations. I told no one, I knew no one in these places. And I said, I'm just going. I'm on the plane, Air France. I'm sitting down, it's this huge Airbus, and these two women are walking towards me, and they sit down next to me, and they're speaking French. And I was looking for my headphone jack, and the woman turned to me and said, oh, it's down there, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, thank you. Oh, you speak English. And then we started talking. What are you doing here in New York? Oh, I'm visiting.
Oh, yeah, you speak English.
Yes, exactly. So she said, I said, what were you doing here in New York visiting? She said, well, I was visiting my brother. He's a musician. Oh, nice. Then we keep talking. We hit it off. The plane hasn't even taken off yet. And she said, so where are you staying? And I said, actually, I have no idea. She said, well, would you like to stay with us? Now, they were a partner. She was a teacher, I think, and her partner was a physical therapist. Lovely, lovely women. They invited me to stay with them in Paris. I was like, wow, that is wonderful.
I can't imagine why, Joe.
Well, yeah, I don't think they were into guys, but that's fine.
Oh, really? Okay.
We were all into each other in a different way. Something was clicking, and so
connection.
Yeah, and so here's what happened. When she said that she wanted to visit her brother, she came to visit her brother. I swear to you, an image of one of my friends who happens to be a French musician popped in my head. But I figured, what are the chances that that's her brother? Well, we kept talking, and I had this call. Mention Cedric, mention him. So I turned to him. I said, I know it's going to sound crazy, but is your brother Cedric? Her jaw drops. She said, how did you know that? I said, because one of my friends, his number is actually in my phone, and I showed her. I worked with him. I used to bartend in a French restaurant. What are the chances, right? So we're like, this is crazy. Something's happening here. We take off. We're 35,000 feet in the air. Anytime I fly, I always feel like it's a dream. It's something surreal that we could be, you know, hurling through space at 500 miles an hour in this, you know.
Yes.
Right? So it started reminding me of like the surreal dream state. And I remembered this, well, I was trying to think of this movie. It kept popping in my head. Dennis Quaid was in this movie about dreams, and I couldn't think of the title. It was one of my favorite movies, and I couldn't think of the title. I'm like, what is that Dennis Quaid movie? Anyway, got it out of my head. We land. We get into Paris, and if you've ever been to Paris, right? Yeah. The most enchanted.
The city of lights, the city of romance.
So I land, here I am, and it feels like I'm in a dream. And I keep thinking about this Dennis Quaid movie, but I can't remember the title. So we hang out, we go to dinner. I just get to see the whole, it was just, I loved it, the lifestyle. And I don't know, you know, people say things about the French. I'm sure there's some French people who don't like Americans, but I just it was just wonderful. I was like Dorothy, you know, in The Wizard of Oz, meeting all these people. And it was magical.
Following the yellow brick road.
Totally. So all these magical moments, and I just kept thinking about this movie, and it's because it was so surreal. So I go to Rome again, no plans, no anything. I end up finding accommodations. I meet people. I'm Italian, so I speak some Italian.
Yeah,
people just took me in, and the food, and it's like walking in a city with dinosaurs, you know, all these relics.
I know. And, you know, I have to say the Italians, they really know how to live in love. I mean, they're so embracing. There's such a warm culture. I lived in Italy for 3 years. Actually, I'm fluent in Italian.
Oh, so, really? Wow.
Yes. So, se vuoi parlare, possiamo parlare. If you'd like to speak, we could.
That's amazing.
That is one of my favorite places in the world. And they taught me so much when I was there about living and loving. So What an incredible story. Is there another piece to this?
Oh, this is where it comes home. This is where it comes home.
The home
so
run.
I'm in Rome, right? And I see all this place. Again, I feel it's a bit surreal, you know, dream state. I keep thinking of this movie, Dennis Quaid. I can't remember the name. So anyway, last day of Rome, I'm at the Vatican, walking across the St. Peter's Square, right? Just walking across. Who is walking directly towards me? Dennis.
I knew it.
Wait.
Wow.
Him and his wife and a tour guide.
Well, I hope you didn't go to me and you were like, I'm sorry, I can't get you off my mind.
Exactly. I had that moment. I'm like, what do? I can't tell him I've been thinking about him ever since.
Hey, Dennis, I saw you got a new couch.
Shoulders literally brushed. And in that moment, and this is going to sound however you want to sound, but it was like life is this dream. And we are certainly co-creators in it. Whether I made that happen or whether I knew that was, I don't know, something magical was going on.
That's what I was going to say. Do you think it was a manifestation of your thoughts?
It's one of those mysteries. I can't make sense of it other than for that moment, again, I stepped out of reality and I was like, what is going on here? How is this even like statistically probability possible?
I mean, it's not, but it is, you know, and words and thoughts matter. And I know, you know, that as a coach, it's so important, but you know, something popped into my head and I was thinking, you know, Joe, I have a title for a book for you. I think it should be called Cedric's Sister. I love it. And you know what? You can talk about that the magic happens when you're just not making any plans and you just let God in, or you let the universe in to just guide you.
Yes. Listen, we you know, we talked a little bit about this. One of the things that really has begun to deepen my connection to God and just allowing is that quiet time in the morning, sure, where I just create space to listen. And it's not, for me, not a voice. Mm-hmm. It's a sensation. It's a feeling. I'll get an image, a direction to go, and I can feel, I know when it's, and that doesn't always mean it ends up in this fantastic result, but the journey that I take to get there are typically contain the lessons that I need to learn and the things that I need to experience. And it's not always fun and, you know, happy stuff. However, it's not
rainbows and butterflies, but you know, it's in those bumps and those twists and those turns that you grow, that you learn. And we have a saying in Italian, since you're Italian, that says, dopo la tempesta esce sempre il sole, which means after the storm, the sun always comes out. So actually, I cherish the bumps. I cherish the hurdles because I know that there's something just beautiful waiting on the other side of the, you know, of the horizon. It's fantastic. It's when the magic happens. So I think
when you keep that in mind,
yeah,
keep that in mind in those difficult times that I know this is taking me somewhere I need to go. And that's really important. You're right.
Definitely. So take me somewhere I'd like to go, and I'd like to learn a little bit more. You're the founder of Collective Endeavors. You are now an expert corporate and personal coach. Tell me a little bit about that. Share some of the great stories, success stories with companies with personal growth as well.
Sure. So I'll take you back a little bit to where we left off before the story, which
I know I missed a few pieces in your incredible.
Yeah. It's so nice to be able to share a story, right? I really appreciate this. So when I was working with the guys at the school in Manhattan, I realized that after we were doing the strength training, and they wanted to hang out. and talk.
Mm-hmm.
And they just started talking about stuff that they were struggling with. And, you know, I began to see myself as a 13-year-old, you know, in them. And I really enjoyed listening and helping to give them a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing, if nothing less, a non-judgmental ear, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, wow, this is really what I want to be doing. And so I went to get my master's at Fordham University in school counseling, but yeah. So then I became school counselor, strength coach.
Back to school, and that is so hard to do.
Yeah, it is. I did it again after that as well, which maybe we'll get to. But this was, again, all the cards lined up, and I just realized how much these guys were struggling with the pressures, the academic pressures, social pressure, drugs, alcohol. And so it became a calling for me to begin to work with people in this way. And I was still doing the acting and the strength training on the outside as well.
Mm-hmm.
And really always just love to watch people transform their lives, you know, and not through what I would do for them, but in a way that I would remind them of what they're capable of to do for themselves. That's really what I do as a coach. I don't have the answers. I always say that I'm not an expert in answers. I am an expert in questions. And when you ask the right questions, they come up with the best answers.
You're an expert in leading, is what you are.
Yeah, yeah, and I see my role as a leader as a facilitator. I'm facilitating something that's already bubbling up in them or quiet in them that needs to be stimulated and triggered.
Sure.
So, and what few things do that more than some really good questions. Oh, I never thought about that before. Huh. When you hear that, now you know now something's starting to open up.
Right. Now you've hit home. Yes.
Yeah. And once you see something, you can't unsee it. And so when there's a realization, that won't go away. And it's a consecutive kind of
right, so then it leads you to the next realization and the next realization. And that is what I know you are brilliant at in business and personally. And kudos to you for making that, you know, your space and for seeing your calling, because not everybody, you know, can find what it is that they're called to do. And I'm sure you have helped so many people find their calling. So can you share one of those stories with me where you really saw someone make a bold transformation, as your website says, you're boldly transforming lives?
Oh, wow. There's a couple. I want to pick one. Yeah, I'll share this one. This was a significant one. I worked with a woman. She was probably in her early 60s at the time. She had just had a hip replacement, and it was poorly rehabbed.
Mm-hmm.
And she was probably 100 pounds overweight. And she couldn't get off the floor, so she wouldn't even allow herself to get on the floor because she knew she couldn't get off the floor. And we worked together for about 1.5 years. She lost 90 pounds. I got her down on the floor, and she got herself up off the floor. And it was a day where there were tears and this moment of like, she never thought she'd be able to do that again. And so as we continued to work together, that was one of the things we would do every time: get down on the floor, get up, get down, get up, get down, get up. So she was really realized that if she could do that, she could do anything. And so that was one of the. So
maybe subliminally, there's a message of, you know, when you're down, just make sure you always get up, right?
Love that. You just put that together. That's right. Because that is primarily who I work with, especially in my personal development work. it's usually folks that are they're having a challenge. They don't know why things aren't happening for them in the way that they thought they would, whether they're in relationships that aren't where they wish they were, jobs where they're just not, there's no purpose or meaning connected
Sure.
in their work. So it's whether reconnecting why they chose that in the first place.
You see a common theme as to why, even though they all have different struggles that they're dealing with, I imagine there may be more of a common theme as to why they're in the place they are.
Yeah, Monique, that's so good. I love the way you put stuff together. Yes. So
thank you.
What?
Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful. Ultimately, because I'm such a big picture guy, you know, often sometimes I forget how to connect the dots, you know.
Sure.
I think ultimately what it is getting people to believe in themselves again. Because I think it's really easy to forget what we're capable of, especially when we've been doing the same thing kind of almost unconsciously for so long. We think that that's all there is.
So do you think there's a piece or an element of, you know, just simply get out of your own way?
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to that listening piece, because that is a part of the work that I do. I build that in. What quiet time do you have in your day, and how are you using that?
So it's funny because just about everyone I've spoken to thus far, and we're talking about living and loving, because I think when you get out of your own way, you can live and love. And that is the overall message that I'm sharing here. And everyone does agree that it's in that settling of your thoughts where the magic happens, where you have the clarity, and where, you know, the universe will just let everything flow right in, and you'll know what to do next without even thinking, without even trying, without even looking. If you just stay right within you, you don't have to look to the outside. And I know I've said this on many of my episodes, but continue to like to reiterate, because I firmly believe that when you stay within, that's where you have everything you need. All the answers are right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so hard to trust that. It's so hard, especially when you have overachievers. And I work with so many, because all of a sudden they hit a point in their life and they're like, this isn't working anymore. And
because they're looking, and it's, you probably agree, it's in that not looking.
Yeah. And they're driving. You know, there's effort, there's power, there's effort, there's force, there's power. It's how can you get to where you want to go, or at least stay open to what's the best direction for you if you're constantly driving it? No, this is it. This is what happened. And there's our will, and I do believe there's a greater will. I believe
there is a greater will.
I am so clear that we are all born with a magnificent purpose. And maybe that purpose is running a daycare. Maybe that purpose is, you know, becoming president of the United States, CEO, owner of a ball team, maybe a mom, a dad, whatever that is. We all have it. And sometimes we think we know what it is, and it's actually a fraction of a joyful and meaningful than the work that we're currently doing. And I do believe that we hit those dry spots to take a pause and say, wait a second, is this really it?
Or is it that we just hit a dry spell because we need to not think about it, what it is, and just trust in that greater will?
Yeah, trust. Absolutely. Trust is the word. Trust is the word in everything, in relationships, in relationships with others, in relationships with ourselves, in relationships with God. You gotta hand it over. And it's scary.
So, Joe, thank you so much, because what a beautiful message, you know, for my listeners. Get out, live, trust in you, trust in that greater will, which is you, and the magic will happen.
Amen.
Amen. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh.
But before I close, I have a question for you that I ask everyone who's bold and brave enough to join me on Living and Loving. And I know it's tough to choose one, but if you can just choose one, can you tell me, because I am a musician, I'm a singer, songwriter, so I always like to know, because music is one of the gifts of life, what is the one song that speaks to your heart and sums up the essence of your being?
Oof. You're right, there's so many. However, and this is whatever, it is what it is.
I've heard that before.
Corey Hart, Never Surrender.
Which song is that?
Corey Hart, Never Surrender. Never
Surrender. Can you sing a little for us?
Oh, jeez. Okay, hold on. Let me think of it. And nobody wants to know what you know. And nobody wants to know. If you're lost and on your own, you can never surrender. And when that path don't lead you home, you can never surrender. And when the night is cold and you can see light. No one can take away the right to fight and to never surrender. Never surrender.
I love this song. So everyone, Mr. Joseph Masi from Collective Endeavors, collectiveendeavors.com. Check him out. He can boldly transform your life. Thank you so much for joining us today on Living and Loving. Get out, trust in your greater will, because that is going to lead you to the magic and lead you to the yellow brick road of living and loving. So thank you again, Joe. You can catch me here every week, Thursdays at 4 p.m. Love you all. Have a great day.